And, as usual, the coffee chat is in session. Joining me today... good morning, ladies.
Morning, police.
And Aaron Bates.
Good morning.
Do people know that middle name? Okay, I won't mention it.
You may mention it. It's not embargoed. Just don't say Marissa, it's Marisa.
All right, guys, let's get straight into it. The front page of the Cape Times, and Slindelo, this is a story that you were following yesterday. The main headline there, jailed king's possible release hailed. Who is happy about King Willekaya possibly being pardoned or released early from prison?
We're looking at the headline. The story is written by Bolden Ndaba, Sitle Mavuso, as well as Siviwe Fegeta. And they're talking about the Abatembu Royal King. And the story is about Contralesa, which is a body. That
traditional body.
The traditional body. So they seem to be very pleased with the announcement made by the president yesterday to grant a number of remissions. It's less than 1% or so, but it's quite a number of remissions. Around 14,000 inmates are going to actually benefit from that. And what a remission is a reduction of a sentence.
Right.
So it's not as though people are going to be released immediately. It's a category of people, a group of people, and it's not all inmates that qualify. Certain crimes basically take you off the list. If you've been sentenced to life for murder, gender-based violence crimes, those inmates do not qualify at all. But lower-risk inmates, inmates that seem to have been rehabilitated, will certainly be considered. And it seems that the Abatembu King has qualified for some very odd reason, I think, because he's only served around 4 years of his sentence. And I think for you to qualify, you need to have served at least half.
Yeah, because he went to jail in December of 2015.
But another person who qualifies is Kanyata Keshe, who is the only fees must fall activist, still serving some jail time for those protest actions. We know he was sentenced to 8 years, 5 years behind bars for his contribution to that protest. He did admit guilt to setting a police vehicle on fire, and what his legal team has been saying was that as much as he needs to be punished for the crime that he committed does not meet the sentence that he was given, that it was a grave injustice. And it seems as though there's a glimmer of hope in actually getting him released on parole very soon. He also qualifies for the remission, and I think his family that I spoke to yesterday were quite anxious before that announcement by the Justice Minister, hoping that Kanya would be on that list. And I think they're quite pleased about that, because we know that he has been struggling inside for some time now.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an early Christmas for him.
Yes, hopefully a good Christmas for
Aaron, still on that front page of the Cape Times, there's a headline down below, Hawks. Police asked to probe Eskom sabotage. I was just ranting about Eskom and the
My work is done.
But this is now receiving very, very special attention from the Hawks. It moves from down below, just being a mere police investigation, to being investigated by the elite crime-fighting unit.
Yes.
Why do we think that is?
Well, I mean, we know that President Cyril Ramaphosa mentioned this idea of sabotage by an Eskom employee amongst the issues contributing to load shedding, which escalated up to stage 6, a stage we've never seen before. Remember last week, Monday, in his presidential letter, there was no mention of load shedding outright. We heard about SOEs, SAA issues at state entities, but not outright comment on load shedding. And then, of course, he was, back from Egypt early, and he mentioned the sabotage amongst the issues contributing to load shedding. Kusela Diko, his spokesperson in the presidency, cited it in this article, which also highlights that the risk of load shedding remains. Even though there isn't load shedding currently, the system is still constrained. There are concerns that load shedding could happen because Eskom is currently drawing on its reserves to keep our power grid going.
There is, though, a thought amongst some people that perhaps the reason that this is receiving such special attention could possibly be that the president, some people were saying last week, he's being misled about this whole sabotage issue. People just pouring water on this allegation.
The water that's not going into the turbines. I mean, certainly is a concern, because the idea of sabotage, until it's credibly found and proven floats around like a fog in a way. And it's also difficult to know in terms of assessing this where the idea of sabotage, if credible, fits in with other systemic issues in terms of Eskom's power supply and its power processing, and how you then weigh it up in relation to other things like unmaintained power plants, issues with flooding and the like. So while this is getting a lot of publicity and attention because of course the Hawks are now involved and the head of state has spoken about it, what are the main contributors to what happened and us escalating to level 6 with load shedding last week?
While we're still talking to you, Erin, you did a story yesterday about 2 doctors that are going to be appearing in court today, and they've been charged with culpable homicide, and that sent shockwaves to the medical fraternity. Talk to us about what that story is about.
Well, what's difficult about the story is that at this stage it's allegations. There are serious allegations of medical malpractice against an anaesthetist and a prominent surgeon who's been working for decades, particularly in pediatric surgery, doing transplants on children and the like. And the reason why it seems to be sending shockwaves through the medical, I would say, field. Fraternity is a masculine term. Sorority is a feminine term. And of course, we have doctors who are both. So let's go with medical field. But the issue here is that doctors are concerned that this may escalate a kind of witch hunt for people who are simply doing their jobs as best they can, and things go terribly wrong. We don't know at this point, in terms of proven findings by the HPCSA or the police, whether or not there was indeed proven medical malpractice here. But I've spoken to several families who have serious grievances against this pediatric surgeon. Bear in mind, this is someone who's been operating on children, often very vulnerable, with very special needs in terms of medical care for decades, and with that inevitably comes fatalities. But in terms of whether or not there was indeed medical negligence here, certainly some big red flags, and doctors are concerned that because it seems the HPCSA has a backlog on cases, the Syed family is now going the legal route to try and expedite accountability for the 2 doctors who operated on their son, Zayan, and he died the same night. They took him in, they thought he was going for an acid reflux surgery that would be fairly straightforward, and he didn't come home alive.
It's a very sensitive story. Yeah. Let's move on to the front page of the Business Day, SLE. And we're not looking at any of the major headlines they're following there. It's something to the side, and it has the topic prosecution. SA to call on UAE to sign treaty to extradite the Guptas. Now, this is about the Guptas being extradited to South Africa. The main question, though, is that this is not about them being extradited just yet, because they're not charged with anything, are they?
Yeah, they still need to meet UAE officials to try and convince them to extradite the Guptas. And I think at this point, I mean, I don't know whether we'll ever get the Gupta brothers back into the country to ever face any kind of prosecution.
The point
I really think we're being taken for a ride here. I don't know about you, Aaron, but I mean, I've been hearing about extradition for some time now, but it's not getting it. It's not. There are no moves actually being made.
Yeah, South Africa did sign the extradition treaty with the UAE last year. It was ratified by us. There seems to be some kind of sort of trip up in terms of the UAE side of things. Also bear in mind that South Africa does, as far as I know, have an extradition agreement with India, and the Guptas seem to volley between the UAE and India. They were there for a big double bill family wedding earlier this year. So interesting that the South African authorities seem to be focused on the UAE route, probably because the Gupta family is predominantly based there, and it's understood that a lot of their capital is also based in the UAE, in Dubai, which is a financial hub. Bear in mind as well, the US Treasury has now listed the 3 Gupta brothers and business associate Salim Essa on their sanction list, and so you wonder if the Dubai authorities and finances follow that, if they wouldn't not act on, the Guptas wouldn't not, double negative, it's very early, they wouldn't act on that already. But yeah, there is this delegation going. Justice Minister not clear on whether there will in fact be a meeting about this extradition treaty.
Because what they actually are attending is an anti-corruption, it's a UN anti-corruption conference that's taking place in Dubai, and there is hope that on the side of that meeting, there might be this meeting between our officials here. And of course, he travels with a high-power team that's already there. He's only leaving today, that's the Justice Minister. So Shamila Batoy, the head of the NPA, is already there, and Hemian Cronje, the head of the investigative unit within the NPA, is there. So we shall see what
I think it's critical that
comes out of that.
There's some kind of movement with regards to those implicated in state capture. I think once South Africans start to see something actually being done besides the inquiry, then I think some kind of justice will be restored, or hope in the country actually moving forward, because those implicated in state capture, until they're actually facing some kind of prosecution, it seems as though we're in a windmill that's turning and turning.
Yeah. Also, just to note, Senzo Mchunu and Naledi Pandor also in that high-level delegation going through. Of course, with the UN focus on anti-corruption, this would be a good opportunity for the UAE if it wants to kind of bang the drum of we are legitimately anti-corruption, we care about the cleanness of money flowing through our financial system. Now would be a good time to ratify that treaty. And of course, remember, with the state capture inquiry, the Gupta said they're perfectly happy to testify and give their version of events, just not in South Africa.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, colleagues. Slidelo Masigane, thanks indeed for making it through. And Aaron, Marisa, Bates, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.